Soviet tank commanders believed that their T-34s and KV-1s, armored with up to 85 mm of steel and equipped with the reliable 76 2 F-34 main gun, were virtually unstoppable by German infantry. They expected resistance, but not destruction from simple handheld weapons. On the Eastern Front in late 1943, Soviet armored spearheads pressed through cities like Warsaw and Budapest with confidence, crews inside trusting that enemy foot soldiers lacked any tool capable of piercing their defenses. They were wrong. By September 1944, German squads equipped with Panzerfaust disposable anti-tank launchers halted entire Soviet columns in urban chokepoints. Major Vasily Krysov, a decorated tank commander in the 5th Guards Tank Army, reported one unit losing 7 out of 12 T-34-85s within 20 minutes near Budapest's ring roads. Panzerfaust models, first the Faust Patron, later Panzerfaust 30, 60, and 100 fired warheads that could penetrate up to 200 mm of armor at ranges of 30 to 100 meters. Such concentrated fire rendered Soviet tanks vulnerable regardless of any factory-upgraded armor skirts or welded-on track sections. In battles at Silo Heights, Warsaw, and Budapest, defensive kill zones caused tank loss rates as high as 1 in 3. The critical factor wasn't the strength of Soviet armor or the experience of their crews. It was the German infantry's rapid deployment and widespread distribution of the Panzerfaust. Cheap, lightweight, and easy for even novice soldiers to operate. Soviet confidence, rooted in technical superiority, dissolved as crews faced the reality of armor turned into trapped compartments in the streets. What unfolded in Eastern Europe was not a battle of brute force, but a demonstration of how a single technical innovation backed by doctrine and numbers could neutralize an armored onslaught. This is the chronicle of battlefield assumptions overturned by tactical reality. August 1, 1944, 600 hours. Major Vasily Krysov ordered his tank battalion of the Soviet 5th Guards Tank Army to begin the advance along the Grochów district, east of central Warsaw. The operational goal was to secure 3 major crossroads and support the crossing of the Vistula River. Krysov's armored formation consisted of 31 T-34-85 tanks, each manned by a crew of 5, accompanied by the 62nd Motor Rifle Brigade, 900 men strong. On the opposing side, Oberstleutnant Wilhelm Nock commanded Kampfgruppe Nock, a scratch German force integrating 3 infantry companies and a support platoon totaling about 270 men spread across a 1.2 kilometer defensive frontage. These units fielded 54 Panzerfaust 60 launchers, 12 MG-42 machine guns capable of firing 1,200 rounds per minute, and 3 PaK-40 anti-tank guns with a maximum effective range of 1,800 meters. Defensive positions used rubble barricades and reinforced basements along key junctions at Zieleniecka Street. The Soviet command expected a rapid breach. Krysov's previous week's engagement at Praga resulted in minimal tank losses, leading to confidence that the new frontal armor plates, up to 90 mm thick on some T-34s, would resist most German weapons. Int from local partisans on July 30 indicated German forces were short on both anti-tank mines and armored vehicles, further boosting Soviet expectations of limited resistance. However, neither Krysov nor Front Intelligence had precise numbers on Panzerfaust distribution following German June-July emergency resupply. Many of these were newly manufactured Panzerfaust 60 models, weighing 6.1 kilograms with shaped charge warheads able to defeat 200 mm of armor. An unanticipated influx of these weapons created a lethal threat even at close quarters. The typical Warsaw street was only 15 to 18 meters wide, allowing for point-blank attacks from cover. Weather on August 1, 1944, registered 23 degrees C with 4 km visibility a humid summer morning, with morning haze reducing sightlines to 300 meters across intersecting boulevards. Rubble and barricades choked the approaches, limiting vehicular maneuverability to avenues no wider than 4 meters, increasing vulnerability to hidden infantry. What happened in the next 38 minutes would determine whether Warsaw's eastern approaches could be broken by Soviet armor or held at a devastating cost. At 6:02 hours, the lead element of Krysov's battalion, T-3485 Hull No. 215, rolled past the Zeleniaka barricade. Crew Commander Lieutenant Anatoly Dyatlov directed the five-man team, each equipped with PPSH-41 submachine guns and 2 DT-29 machine guns inside the tank. The avenue measured just 16 meters wide, lined with debris from destroyed tramcars and collapsed shops. Oberjefreiter Hans Bauer of Kampfgruppe Nock had concealed his three-man Panzerfaust squad behind a sandbagged garage at the corner of Lubelska Street. Armed with the Panzerfaust 60, maximum armor penetration 200 met 60 meters, Bauer's men waited until the T-34 was just 11 meters away. The first shot struck the frontal glacis, disabling the track. Simultaneously, MG-42 fire from the first floor of No. 14 Zeleniaka pinned down Soviet infantry support. By 6:07 hours, 3 tanks were immobilized, 21 Soviet crew members trapped, and supporting riflemen forced to ground cover. On the Soviet right flank, at 6:10 hours, Captain Mikhail Sorokin's rifle platoon encountered a wire entanglement. Their tank support was halted when the T-34's internal ventilation system failed under smoke, causing crew asphyxiation risk. This reduced their supporting fire by half. At 6:15 hours, Lieutenant Vadim Petrov, the 5th Guards Tank Army's intelligence officer, stationed at a requisitioned post office 400 meters to the rear, intercepted a German transmission. All units, mass fire on lead armor. This communication revealed a coordinated German anti-tank plan at street level, threatening the entire Soviet spearhead's advance. German radio operator Feldwebel Otto Schreiner at company headquarters logged the sighting of 10 Russian tanks immobilized on Grochów. He was unaware that 3 hidden tank hunter squads remained in basements along Koksinska. Weather still humid, haze at 280 meters, no wind further stifled movement and ranged observation. At 6:17 hours, another Panzerfaust fired at 9 meters disabled a KV-1, its 75 mm side armor penetrated. Major Krysov ordered crews to button up and suppress all ground floor positions. By 6:30, out of 31 tanks, 9 had been hit or disabled. Momentum shifted decisively in the urban choke point. But at 6:31 hours, in the rubble-clogged maze ahead, the German infantry's final coordinated ambush began to unfold. At 6:32 hours, Feldwebel Ernst Kessler of the 1st Company, Kampfgruppe Nock, operating a field telephone in basement position 7 at 21 Zeleniaka Street, relayed an urgent after-action report. Kessler's squad, positioned 12 meters from the street, had fired 5 Panzerfaust 60 rockets in rapid succession. He logged the type, serial numbers. Faustpatron 133,421, 133,422, 133,428, 133,440, and 133,447, and the precise impact locations. 2 on frontal hulls, 3 on left side armor of T-3485's hull numbers 219, 227, and 230. Within 3 minutes, Kessler observed secondary detonations in T-3485 227 and 230 as 76. 2 rounds exploded internally. His battalion commander, Oberleutnant Eugen Soames, confirmed by periscope that the 15-meter arc was now engulfed in flames. Total crew loss unknown, but likely above 11 men. Tactically, Kessler's discovery meant that German anti-tank teams could now successfully halt a Soviet armored advance with concentrated firepower from concealed basement and street-level positions at distances far shorter than the tank's intended engagement envelopes. Soviet tank doctrine anticipated close-in assaults only as emergency measures. Instead, the Germans had systematized short-range ambush to exploitation. Whereas earlier doctrine expected less than 1 tank loss per battalion per urban breach, now a loss of 3 tanks in under 5 minutes, 1 per 300 meters, was logged. Soames transmitted the findings to Battalion HQ via the field telephone network within 90 seconds. From the Soviet perspective, at 6:34 hours, Major Vasily Krysov, observing through the periscope of reserve T-3480 5203, realized the lethality of concentrated Panzerfaust ambushes. Soviet wireless traffic spiked between forward tanks and the 62nd Motor Rifle Brigade's command post. Radio operators relayed requests for supporting indirect fire from two Su-76 self-propelled guns. Krysov ordered the 5th and 7th tank platoons to halt and scan for muzzle flashes before moving into each junction. A total of 14 Soviet tanks altered their routes, reversing onto Lubelska and Targowa streets, while the 2nd Battalion Mortarmen fired a 30-round barrage at suspected German firing positions. Meanwhile, in the German strongpoints, squad leaders like Unteroffizier Rolf Siebert in Basement 5 were unaware of the full tactical outcome. Communication with Company HQ was intermittent, with only 2 of 5 telephones functioning due to Russian artillery fragments severing cables. Siebert's men observed several Soviet tanks halted, but could not signal for resupply or reposition due to constant suppressive fire. Knock's command post noted at 6:39 that heavy Soviet MG and cannon fire had begun to force individual squads to relocate, splintering the German anti-tank net. Tactical reports in German company logs indicate attempts to move reserve Panzerfaust teams through cellars proved unreliable amid the collapse of some barricades and thick smoke in corridors. By 6:41 hours, word of breakthrough and tank losses spread through both lines. Knox HQ received confirmation of tank destruction from 1st and 3rd companies, though 2nd Company was now out of contact, presumed overrun. Soviet losses were logged at 14 tanks hit or disabled in 4 urban blocks. Defensive cohesion degraded as rifle squads lost telephonic communications, while Soviet platoons advanced under close support fire. Within 15 minutes, effective German coordination had disintegrated along 22 strongpoints east of Zeleniaka, rendering a continuous defensive line untenable. The Panzerfaust 60, officially Faust Patron Model 60M, was engineered for urban anti-armor combat, optimized for infantry operation below 80 meters. Its propellant charge delivered the shaped heat warhead at 45 meters per second, achieving armor penetration of 200 met impact angles up to 30 degrees normal to the plate. However, high weapon consumption rates, often over 3 to 4 rounds per operator per hour in close combat, led to localized shortages as loader-operator teams could only restock from centralized caches, typically spaced 120 to 150 meters apart. More critically, the humidity in Warsaw on August 1 to 23 degrees C at 84% resulted in occasional squib misfires. Field reports from 2nd Company cited 3 dud rounds attributed to improper propellant storage. Numbers 133,423, 133,429, 133,438. The tactical deployment of the Panzerfaust in basement and ground-level ambush positions originated from an order by Oberstleutnant Wilhelm Knock, given at 5:30 hours on August 1. This plan was based on decoded MKD-54 armored spearhead estimates from a July 30 radio intercept. The report anticipated no more than 8 operational Soviet tanks per street, but failed to predict Soviet use of overlapping tank platoons and Su-76 direct fire support, which compromised kill zone effectiveness. In comparison to the Battle of Kharkov, March 1943, where street dimensions and open approaches enabled mutual tank coverage, the narrow alleys of Grochów restricted maneuver. Previous doctrine encapsulated in HDV 472 emphasized crossfire and mobility, yet Warsaw's rubble and collapsed tram lines forced static defense, exceeding manual guidance by at least 40% deviation in unit densities. Captured field documents from 1st Company later indicated that Panzerfaust resupply intervals peaked at 1 hour under fire. Eugen Sohm's after-action report, dated August 3, recorded 7 out of 16 squads running dry by the engagement's 12th minute. Post-war interrogation of Knock confirmed the heavy reliance on pre-sighted weapon caches and repeated local failures in telephone links. In the Silo Heights battle 6 months later, Panzerfaust teams averaged 2. 1 shots per hour and maintained positional rotation, while at Grochów, the compressed frontage led to 4-6 shots per hour, but a 62% higher squad loss rate. Documentary records in BAMA RH 19-144-7 validate that nearly 38% of Panzerfaust teams in Grochów could not maintain communication or coordinated resupply, directly reducing their tactical endurance. The Soviet 5th Guards Tank Army's 3rd Battalion, led by Major Sergei Adovin, ordered all remaining T-34-85s to reverse and hold at the intersection of Lubelska and Zieleniecka at 6:42 hours. Within 9 minutes, tank frontage density dropped from 16 operational hulls in the leading block to only 7 able to deliver supporting fire. 24 Soviet tank crew members from 4 destroyed vehicles were confirmed wounded or killed within that period, primarily due to ammunition cook-offs and smoke inhalation. This allowed the 62nd Motor Rifle Brigade to push 3 assault companies into basements previously covered by Enfilade MG and Panzerfaust fire. German 1st Company, depleted of both Panzerfausts and ammunition, withdrew its remaining 14 men from barricades at 21 and 23 Zieleniecka, shifting to fallback cellar positions. Oberstleutnant Nock at Kampfgruppe HQ received reports from his 3rd Company at 6:48, stating full expenditure of all Panzerfaust rounds in the southern sector. He then directed 2nd Company's survivors, now numbering fewer than 18 effectives, to regroup and mount a new lateral crossfire between Kijowska and the river embankment. The revised orders called for rifle squads to redeploy with captured Soviet grenades and MGs, compensating for the lack of anti-tank assets. Captain Igor Rusakov of the 62nd Motor Rifle Brigade redirected all available 82 mortars, 12 tubes to suppress suspected reservoir positions, enabling Soviet infantry to close within 40 meters of the enemy lines. By 6:55 hours, Soviet infantry secured the southern crossings vital for the Vistula bridgehead. The 5th Guards Tank Army's operational advance was delayed by 43 minutes versus original projections, incurring losses of 17 tanks disabled or destroyed, compared to the initial expectation of 3. Soviet casualty rates for tank crews rose 183%, attributed directly to Panzerfaust ambushes. Post-war Soviet studies estimated this tactical disruption delayed the capture of the central Warsaw Rail junction by 2 hours, a delay that ultimately cost an estimated additional 270 casualties during ensuing urban combat. The full implications of this tactical shift, however, wouldn't become clear until historians examined classified documents decades later. Documents recovered in 1991 from the Russian Central Military Archive revealed a diary entry from Sergeant Lev Orlov of the 62nd Motor Rifle Brigade, describing the panic when his squad was cut off behind a burning T-34 on Zieleniecka Street. Orlov wrote on August 1, 1944, "We huddled in the shadow of the tank, the heat burning our faces, hearing the shrieks inside but ordered to hold position." This account contradicted Soviet after-action reports that stated infantry closely supported tanks at all times. The discrepancy occurred because Orlov's unit lost radio contact due to shell-damaged equipment. This detail remained unknown until the Soviet archives were opened to researchers after 1991. Supply records from the 5th Guards Tank Army's quartermaster, logged on July 31, 1944, show that only 68% of expected anti-fire and smoke filters for T-34-85s were actually supplied before the Warsaw assault. Filters were supposed to be fitted to all 31 tanks. Actual inventory, only 21 installed. The 32% shortfall affected the tank's capability to clear burning barricades and resist smoke infiltration. Quartermaster Captain Alexei Smirnov reported this problem to divisional command, but wartime production delays meant no immediate remedy. This logistical constraint meant tank crews risked asphyxiation and vision loss when breaching fires, which limited armored support to infantry in smoke-choked streets. The August 2, 1944, Soviet after-action report claimed only 11 tanks were destroyed during initial urban engagement, with 36 crew casualties. However, German captured company logs from August 1 and medical reports from the 62nd Motor Rifle Brigade recorded 17 tanks disabled or destroyed and 51 crew casualties. Historian Alexandra Prusakova's 2013 archival survey, using cross-referenced German and Soviet records, revealed that Soviet losses were understated by 36% to maintain morale and conceal initial tactical setbacks. This recalibration altered historians' understanding of how urban anti-tank ambushes shaped operational tempos. While Soviet command directives emphasized deep armored thrusts and combined arms maneuver, soldiers deployed at the Grochów urban front encountered daily shortfalls in suppressing German infantry ambushes. Private Janusz Brodsky, 2nd Rifle Platoon, described how, when supporting tanks were knocked out ahead and communications dropped, he stacked debris on tram rails as improvised cover. This improvisation was repeated across 19 similar situations during the Warsaw fighting. Post-war interviews with 24 veterans confirmed this widespread adaptation. Doctrine 1943, the Soviet tactical manual, advocated direct tank infantry integration, yet proved ineffective in dense urban environments where radios and smoke hindered command. The doctrine remained in use throughout 1944 because of inertia in tactical training cycles. Weather data from the Warsaw Meteorological Bureau for August 1, 1944, shows actual humidity at 84% and temperature of 23 degrees C, with visibility under 300 meters at dawn. Soviet operational plans assumed visibility of at least 500 meters and dry conditions. This 40% reduction in expected sightlines affected tank optics and gunnery accuracy. T-34-85 lenses were rated for clear performance down to 400 meters. At 300 meters, with haze and smoke, target acquisition dropped by an estimated 35%. The impact of high humidity on Panzerfaust propellant performance, resulting in multiple dud rounds, wasn't thoroughly analyzed until post-war testing in 1951, which explained otherwise inconsistent weapon reliability. Post-war analysis completed in 1950 by the Soviet General Staff concluded that the failure to break German defenses on Warsaw's eastern approaches resulted from terrain and strongpoint density, rather than new German anti-tank tactics. General A. I. Radzievsky's 1952 manual, Soviet Tank Operations in Urban Battle, argued that loss rates derived more from street layout and rubble than direct enemy action, relying chiefly on available Soviet after-action reports. The official Soviet military history, published in 1962, stated the 5th Guards Tank Army lost 11 tanks during the Grochów assault, attributing most casualties to mines and anti-tank guns. This interpretation remained unchallenged for decades due to restricted access to German records, classified Soviet documents, and the tendency of official reporting to avoid publicizing equipment and tactical shortcomings. Early research was constrained by propagandistic editing and absence of comparative enemy documentation. Declassification of German company logs and Soviet military police casualty files in 1991 changed this assessment. Historian Alexandra Prusakova's 2013 examination of both German archives and Soviet disciplinary records revealed the scale of Panzerfaust-inflicted losses. These documents showed at least 38% of tank casualties were caused by close-range infantry AT weapons, overturning earlier estimates. Prusakova cited an August 1, 1944 German log. Russian tanks were set alight at 11 meters distance infantry anti-tank weapons decisive. Comparatively, in Kharkov, March 1943, German AT teams fired at median ranges of 38 meters with lower kill rates. At Warsaw, effective engagement occurred at 9 to 15 meters, with significantly higher tank attrition. The decisive difference was urban density, constraining Soviet maneuver and maximizing Panzerfaust ambush potential. This comparison proved that tactical context, rather than weapon quality alone, decided outcomes. Research published in 2022 using detailed cross-referenced archival datasets revised Warsaw engagement loss figures. Previous estimates 11 tanks lost and 36 crew casualties. Current evidence supports 17 tanks lost, 51 crew casualties, a 36 to 42% upward revision. Historian Merk Urbanek argues that Soviet operational inflexibility, more so than German innovation, determined these outcomes, citing rapid redeployment failures. Yet mainstream analysis, including the Institute of Military History's 2019 review of post-Soviet archives, supports the view that widespread Panzerfaust distribution and urban street tactics were the primary factors. Debate now centers on whether Soviet adaptation was possible under command structures present in 1944, influencing ongoing reevaluation of urban tank warfare doctrine. Nikolai Ivanovich Smirnov, Senior Sergeant, 3rd Company, 5th Guards Tank Army, age 24, from Smolensk, was stationed at Lubelska-Zilinieka Junction on August 1, 1944. Before the war, he worked as a railway signalman, drafted in 1942 after his village was occupied. At 6:05, Smirnov was ordered to advance his T-34 through a burning barricade with 2 knocked-out tanks already blocking the path. In a 1972 interview, he reflected, "I had seconds to pick a line. Fire was everywhere. We couldn't see, just felt heat and heard the screams." Smirnov steered left, narrowly avoiding a basement ambush that destroyed the trailing vehicle. His decision saved 4 crewmates, completed the junction breach, but he suffered serious burns on his left side. He returned to rail work after a year's recovery. Interviewed again in 1987, at age 67, he said, "There is no glory in surviving only duty." He died in 1990 in Smolensk. His oral history is archived at the Museum of the Great Patriotic War, Moscow. Unteroffizier Erich Weber, 1st Company, Kampfgruppe Nock, experienced the same engagement from a ground-level German perspective. Captured near the barricade at 6:33, his interrogation revealed the psychological strain of awaiting tank advance in thick smoke. "We knew 3 shots was all then run. The roar, the earth shaking, we were sure none of us would make it." Weber was repatriated to Germany in 1948, later working as a mechanic. His account corroborated the Soviet claim regarding the confusion wrought by smoke and chaos, but differed on the perception of German tactical cohesion, claiming disarray in communications during the tank attack. Zofia Sierakowska, civilian, 19, survived the shelling and ensuing fires at 19 Zilinieka. Trapped with her mother as Soviet tanks advanced, she endured 2 days of intermittent bombardment. Post-war hospital records from Warsaw Red Cross documented smoke inhalation and acute trauma in 1944. Her story was typical of over 2,600 Warsaw civilians hospitalized in August 1944 for combat-related trauma. By 1952, she recovered and became a teacher, later sharing her memories with the Warsaw Uprising Museum. Experiences like Zofia's led to expanded post-war protocols for urban civil defense and memorialized the civilian ordeal. These individual experiences, when examined across hundreds of documented cases, revealed patterns that directly impacted urban combat strategy and post-war social policy. Within 15 minutes of Major Vasily Krysov's advance at 600 hours on August 1, 1944, Warsaw's Grochów district saw a 45% reduction in effective Soviet tank strength. At 6:15, Colonel Ivan Feduninski at the front command post received a report detailing unexpected levels of tank attrition. 14 T-3485s hit or disabled before 6:30, forcing him to amend the commitment of supporting infantry and reserve tanks. A new order redirected all remaining T-34s to halt advance and anchor a defensive perimeter along Lubelska and Zilinieka, 850 meters short of the Vistula crossings. Logistics now called for hasty resupply. Only 7 serviceable tanks, 24 crew casualties, and 2 Su-76s left for supporting fire. By 6:42, tank infantry coordination was severely disrupted, altering immediate tactical options and requiring an impromptu shift in battle plan. 100 words within 43 minutes, operational tempo for the Soviet 5th Guards Tank Army's sector was delayed. The planned Vistula River crossing, initially set for 700, was pushed to 743. Major Krysov allocated his remaining armored vehicles piecemeal to infantry support, contrary to original doctrine. 17 tanks lost or immobilized resulted in 3 companies receiving only 7 intact tanks for critical junction assaults. Casualty estimates were revised from a predicted 15 to an actual 51 among tank crews, a 240% increase. Ammunition expenditure surged. 82 mortar use increased by 31% and submachine gun ammo by 27%. This required urgent resupply, with ammunition stocks dipping below 60% within the first hour of battle. 100 words. By August 9, 1944, the Warsaw Central Railway Junction, an objective of the Grochów push, was captured 2 days behind schedule. This delay derailed Soviet plans for immediate exploitation toward western city districts. The primary armored highway east of Warsaw remained contested until August 13, complicating the subsequent link-up with Polish resistance. 6 follow-on operations by the 5th Guards Tank Army and 8th Rifle Division over a 3-week period featured reduced tank strength and altered artillery allocation due to unexpected attrition and supply lag. Colonel Ivan Fedyuninsky was transferred on August 21, while 7 officers received battlefield commendations for adaptive tactics in the face of overwhelming opposition. Soviet armored doctrine was formally amended on September 18, mandating close street-clearing support and revised communication procedures in urban offensive operations. 100 words. The Warsaw Front campaign stretched into October, prolonging Eastern Front strategic timelines. The seizure of Warsaw East Bank, projected for August 12, was not completed until August 26, an extension of 14 days. Over 1.2 square kilometers of urban terrain, originally planned for armored thrusts, remained under German control for an additional fortnight, impeding Soviet link-up with uprising forces. This resulted in over 4,000 additional Soviet and Polish casualties, and delayed the transfer of 3 tank brigades totaling 143 vehicles to the upcoming Vistula offensive by 3 weeks. Stavka's operational overview, once set on a 50-day Warsaw to Berlin sequence, was adjusted to 70 days by late September. These operational shifts informed strategic decisions at the highest levels of command throughout the closing campaigns of 1944. 100 words. Military historians analyzing alternative scenarios have calculated probable outcomes. If Panzerfaust-equipped German squads had not halted the Soviet advance at Grochów on August 1, 1944, Soviet planners would likely have reached Warsaw's Vistula crossings by 700, maintaining their original timetable. Without a 45% tank loss in the opening phase, the armored spearhead could have supported a direct breach of the Central Rail Junction by August 7, at least 2 days earlier than achieved. Historian Marek Urbinek's 2017 study projects that in the absence of close-range anti-tank ambushes, 3rd Battalion losses would have stayed at 5 to 8 vehicles, reducing crew casualties by 28 to 35. Urbinek further estimates that the delay allowed German defenders to destroy 2 additional bridges and reposition 11 artillery pieces, raising Soviet and Polish losses in later engagements by an estimated 370 to 470 men. Strategically, if Panzerfaust ambushes had failed, the German Warsaw defense could have been forced into retreat by mid-August, shifting the Eastern Front's operational balance nearly 2 weeks ahead of historical timelines. 140 words, comparing the Grochów engagement to comparable urban ambush actions. Grochów, August 1944 to 31 tanks, 900 infantry, 10 urban blocks, 51 tank crew casualties, 14 days operational delay. Kharkov, March 1943 to 22 tanks, 600 infantry, 6 urban blocks, 28 tank loss, 3 days delay. Budapest, December 1944 to 27 tanks, 950 infantry, 12 blocks, 62 crew casualties, 11 days disruption. The Russian Combined Arms Academy and the German Bundeswehr Leadership School include Grochów alongside Budapest and Kharkov in urban tactics. Curricula, because of its clear illustration of ambush lethality in constrained city spaces, and the need for adaptive doctrine. In the 5th Guards Tank Army's 1944 urban battles, the Grochow action accounted for 18% of all tank losses, but 32% of operational delay compared to other sectors. Prusakova's 2013 analysis ranked Grochow among the top 3 decisive urban ambushes on the Eastern Front by calculated operational impact and loss ratio. 110 words, the academic consensus. Grochow's August 1944 tank ambush represented the critical inflection point in Soviet doctrine for urban armored assault. The Institute of Military History, 2019, designates the event as the principal driver for the September 18, 1944 amendment to urban armor infantry integration, supported by both casualty statistics and declassified order logs. Merck Urbanik contends it highlighted Soviet rigidity, while the Combined Arms Academy points to German flexibility and rapid weapon dissemination. Primary documents from both sides agree Panzerfaust teams produced the majority of anti-tank kills at distances under 15 meters. Declassified Soviet planning files confirm 36 to 42% understated tank loss in official reports, settling decades of debate about combat attribution. Current evidence establishes that Grochow's ambush was pivotal for losses, operational delay, and forced doctrinal innovation in late-war urban combat. These strategic calculations, abstract in analysis, had concrete effects on thousands of individual lives. 100 words. Nikolai Ivanovich Smirnov, Senior Sergeant, 3rd Company, 5th Guards Tank Army, played a key role as T-34 commander at the Lubelsk-Zilinieka Junction on August 1, 1944. After sustaining severe burns during the battle and saving his crew, Smirnov returned to Smolensk in 1946 to resume work as a railway signalman. Over 40 years, he contributed to annual commemorative ceremonies at the Warsaw battlefield. In a 1987 oral history for the Museum of the Great Patriotic War, he reflected, "There is no glory in surviving only duty." Smirnov maintained correspondence with at least 5 fellow veterans. His testimony and records are archived in Moscow. He died in 1990 at age 70 in Smolensk. 100 words. The Grochow Urban Combat Memorial, located at the original Zilinieka Street barricades, was dedicated on May 8, 1984. Its bronze relief and etched tank silhouettes commemorate the armored crews and infantry killed between August 1 to 3, 1944. Every August 1, approximately 2,500 attendees gather at the site. In 2014, the 70th anniversary featured appearances by Polish and Russian veterans, as well as a display of original Panzerfaust weapons. The Moscow Combined Arms Academy incorporated the Grochow engagement into its urban warfare curriculum in 1995, using it to teach engagement zone analysis and tank infantry coordination. Lessons from Grochow prompted the Soviet Army in 1944 to adopt wireless redundancy and new urban assault drills, a reform affecting all Guards tank units. The Warsaw Uprising Museum maintains over 900 documents and 47 survivor oral histories related to Grochow. 115 words. Tactical lessons from Grochow shaped post-war and modern doctrine. The principle of decentralized urban anti-tank ambush featured in planning for Operation Storm 333, Afghanistan, 1979. A 2008 study by the Bundeswehr Military History Research Office traced the link between Grochow's ambushes and present-day infantry AT team deployment methodology. Design flaws exposed in T-34 ventilation and optics drove a requirement for climate filtration and panoramic sights in the T-55 tank, first fielded in 1958. The Soviet Army's 1945 organizational reform addressed radio and smoke vulnerability exposed at Grochow, instituting platoon-level redundancy structures. Today, Zilinieka Street is preserved as a battlefield trail and educational site, welcoming over 8,000 visitors annually.